Hello and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Ali Moreno, Craig Burley and Shaka Hislop. Gab Marcotti will be with us shortly. A little later on the programme, Lionel Messi steals the show as Barca comfortably knocked United out of the Champions League. But it's in Turin that we start. Juventus out. Remember, 1-1 was the score against Ajax in the first leg, and it started well for Juve. Cristiano Ronaldo opening the scoring, but goals for Ajax either side of half-time guarantees them a place in the semi-final. Juventus out. And people who didn't see the game, Craig, might think, well, you know, maybe Ajax got lucky. In no way did they not deserve this win.
Not over 2 games. Not over the 2 games, which is incredible. Well, maybe it's not. I always felt in today's Champions League games this was going to be the better game because of, you know, Barca's dominance, which we'll talk about. And I felt Ajax would go and have a go and play their football. But I did, like most people, think Juve's experience, and with Ronaldo, would just edge them out.
Yeah.
You know, too much nous, too much experience. At home, what they did in the last leg against Atleti with the Ronaldo hat-trick. But they were beaten by a better team. And you know what? They were out-schooled in terms of a football lesson. Ajax's youngsters, mixed with experience, knocked the ball about faster, quicker, more accurately, and in that second half, it was particularly in the first, 30 minutes of the second half, they ripped him apart every time they went forward. They could have had themselves 3 or 4.
They really could.
Yeah.
Really could. For Juventus, they didn't have a shot on target after the 31st minute, which kind of sums up how lacklustre they were.
Yeah.
They were terrible in the second
It was pretty ridiculous. I mean, and we thought that Juventus, given their experience, as Craig rightly points out, would have the beating of Ajax, no question. They get the goal that they want, that ultimately 1-0, what you think would see them through. And then it almost seems as though they revert into this, well, we'll defend that lead that we have, and they've done so successfully in the past. But this is an Ajax team that don't seem to follow that history and certainly haven't read any scripts of late, because they just kind of recognize that Juventus sit back a little bit, soaking up pressure. And Ajax simply went to them, played the football that got them this far, in particular those two ties against Real Madrid. They were simply lethal in the counter-attack in the way they got numbers forward and the way that they always seemed to find a pass and never seemed flustered. And Juventus just couldn't find that grasp of the game after that. Once you take your foot off an opponent's neck, you're asking for trouble, and that's exactly what they got.
Juventus never showed the intensity that they showed in the second leg against Atletico Madrid. It was never that type of game for Juventus. And it's almost as if they thought, well, look, the result that we got away from home will be more than enough for us to come home and dominate because we are Juventus, because we are at home. Credit to Ajax and credit to the middle of midfield between Lasse Schöne and Van de Beek and Frankie de Jong. They dominated Pjanic and Emre Can and Matuidi. And I mean they dominated. They destroyed those guys. There was no real transition for Juventus. So whenever they were under pressure and they were trying to find an outlet, there was no outlet through the midfield. Those guys dominated the midfield. And then the attacking players for Ajax, not the attacking players for Juventus, but the attacking players for Ajax took over. And so Tadic is running with the ball. Ziyech is running with the ball. Neres is running with the ball. They are all creating opportunities for themselves, for others. In fact, I would go as far as to say overdoing it, overpassing. When would you have thought that we would be talking about Ajax overpassing in Juventus, in their attacking half? Almost trying to make the perfect goal rather than taking advantage of the opportunities. Had they been more effective and more efficient in the final third, this is nowhere near 2-1. This is not this close. And it was not this close over 2 legs. Embarrassing for Juventus, tremendous work for Ajax.
Let's bring Gab Marcotti into the conversation. Gab, who's getting the blame?
Well, I think it has to be across the board. But I think, first of all, you have to point to the fact that, if for 3 of the 4 halves, maybe you could argue that these teams were roughly even. In the second half, Ajax simply road graded them. And I think the guys made a good point. If all you see is the goals that Juventus conceded over the 2 legs, you can go and you can point to an individual mistake, in each one. Like tonight, obviously, the defense not coming up and on the Lijk's header, Rugani probably should have done better. But it's all those other chances that Ajax either missed or Szczesny made a save, or the one where Pjanic has to make that incredible recovery, or Tadic deciding not to shoot when he probably should have buried it, you know, and overpassing. It really was a tremendous beatdown. And Max Allegri said, you know, I can point to the mistakes, but when an opponent plays so well, you know, we'll go back and we'll see what we could have done better, what we should have done better. I agree. The midfield struggled. They talked about lack of leadership. They talked about you know, the usual things that managers trot out. I personally think it's an issue with Juve, which is that I think we overrate experience. And you know, experience is great, but knowing how to play the game, understanding the game tactically, having quality, having intensity, having work rate, and putting all those things together on the night, that will trump experience.
Well, we shouldn't forget Ajax started this competition in July. I believe, I might be wrong, but I think it was 3 qualifiers. This is a huge shot in the arm for Dutch football. And the resurgence not only as a league, but more importantly as a national team.
Plus, they're in a title race. They put out a full-strength side at the weekend because they had to. Juventus, meanwhile, rested a lot of key players. Yet you watched that game, and it was Juve who looked tired.
And De Jong was a big doubt because of injury.
Yep.
And only, 3 days rest. So that was a huge risk. The only difference is goal difference in the Dutch league. So they're fighting on 2 fronts. The national team's getting better again.
Yep.
People are talking about the Dutch league again. It goes against those people that say, well, unless you can spend $1 gazillion, you can't compete. Because if you make the right signings, if you get experience back in, like Blind, if you get Tadic from Southampton, I mean, let's be honest, who else was out there trying to drag Tadic from Southampton? And by the way, in both the Bernabeu and here again, he was amazing. And then you mix the youngsters they've got coming through, and I know they're going to lose De Jong, and they will lose De Ligt, there's no doubt about it. I don't want to be negative, but that's just the way it's going to be. So when you can mix and match, and you've got good coaching and a good conveyor belt coming through, you might not win it, but you can at least compete and put performances on like that.
Juventus, of course, out, Gab. What does this mean for Allegri?
Well, Max Allegri is going to be back next year. In a rare interview, the president, Andrea Agnelli, came out afterwards and sort of said, you know, reminded everybody about what a great cycle it's been for Juve and how the cycle continues. But, you know, Juve really are like a team that kind of, you know, put all their chips on red. They went all in when they signed Cristiano. They thought Cristiano was going to be the missing link. I don't think anybody's going to point to him and blame him. He certainly did his part. But maybe in so doing, they kind of lost sight of the fact that, you know, it's great adding all these experienced players, but maybe you need to get the balance right. And, you know, they added Blaise Matuidi, Aaron Ramsey's going to come in next year. Just a lot of guys who are sort of in their late 20s. I think to some degree, other players like Dybala or Bernardeschi, Dybala especially, I don't think they benefited at all from Cristiano's arrival because, you know, it took responsibility away from him. Oh, look, no worries, that guy's here. Cristiano sorted it. And I think that showed during the season. This has been coming. Juventus, they say this almost every week. You know, you can probably count on one hand the number of games against good opponents where they've played really well this season. Atletico Madrid was one, maybe 1 or 2 others, but that's it.
Well, I tell you what, I'm a big fan of Aaron Ramsey, as you know. I'm a fan of Aaron Ramsey and a fan of what the boys came through with the horrendous league break to come back. And I don't deny anybody an opportunity, free transfer, go and fill your bank account. Fantastic. Good squad player. But if Juventus are going out the Champions League as they have, and they see what the gap is, and that's the kind of signing that they're making, my God. It's not exactly going to be
as much as they'll try and hang their hat on the Scudetto, obviously, but they've run away with it. This is a disaster, isn't it?
It is. And to that point, I don't think Juventus have done anything different transfer-wise this last summer, this coming summer, that they've done previously. They continue to add. They've always added players that just seemed a little bit outside of left
Oh,
field at times.
Ronaldo's against the grain, surely.
That is against the grain, is my point. But they've always managed to find a system and to find the balance that Gab's talking about that's been lacking, and get the job done, not just in Syria.
Grain, surely.
That is against the grain, is my point. But they've always managed to find a system and to find the balance that Gab's talking about that's been lacking, and get the job done, not just in Syria, but in Europe as well. And you thought that Ronaldo would be the missing piece. Now all of a sudden you're kind of realizing that something has to be done differently, because this was a poor performance. And as much as they're relying on a spine and certainly a well-organized and well-marshaled defense, that defense is getting older. And it was desperately exposed today against a team who are willing to run and pass the ball. And I feel that's where they need to start having a look. And how do you plan for the future going forward?
At their very best, Juventus, they have a certain toughness about them. They have the talent up top and in the attacking players to create chances and score goals, but there's a toughness about them in the midfield. Well, that wasn't there today. No. In fact, there was a softness about them in the midfield. A team that allow all these players to run circles around them. You don't see that from Juventus. You don't see that from Juventus on a weekly basis in Serie A, and you don't see that from Juventus certainly in Champions League and not at this stage of Champions League. So that is something that needs to be addressed. The other thing is that I find that there are players on the field that might have just sealed their fate with the team. A guy like Paulo Dybala, who's given the opportunity to start and given the chance at this stage of the competition and has to be taken out at halftime to put in Moise Kean because he has done absolutely nothing. And so here's a guy that, yes, maybe frustrated because his roles has changed with Cristiano Ronaldo being there. Well, tough. Then find another way that you can contribute. Certainly not the case today. Taken off at halftime, and I would not be surprised if this is the sort of player that they move away from in order to bring something else, something different. As it pertains to Ajax, as talented as they are, what I would be very concerned about is, my goodness, how do you keep these players?
Sure.
Because we're not the only ones who are sitting here saying how good they've been.
It's Monaco again, isn't it?
Yeah, and so everybody's going to be looking at them and saying, well, we can go after that guy, and we may not get that guy, but we may get that guy. Yeah. And how do you compete? And as much as they're a conveyor belt, you have to be sitting there thinking, man, we've done too well. Because now the market is open, and the market is open to the big teams, to the big names. And when they come in, you're going to listen.
Gav, it's one thing, isn't it, for the president of Juve to come out and say, yeah, we're going to have Allegri, he will be here next season. But if you're in charge, would you stick with Allegri?
You know what? I probably would. I think the worst thing you can do, you've chosen a path, you have to stick with it. You gave Cristiano 4 years. Cristiano isn't there to be part of a rebuild. I know it feels like he's eternal sometimes, but he really isn't. So you're stuck in this position where obviously, yes, you reload, you put pieces around him, but you can't say, okay, we're going to have a transition year. Ali mentioned Dybala there. It's a great point. Dybala, though, is also one of the few younger players at Juve. And so the question is, logic suggests that he goes and you cash in as much as you can and you bring somebody else in. But then you've got the same problem as before. You know, you're losing a guy in mid-career who you may or may not be able to recoup. All of a sudden, you know, a lot of key players are looking old. Yeah, Moise Kean is there, but, you know, what do you do with Mandzukic, who's going to be 33? Chiellini is 34. Obviously, he wasn't there tonight. Maybe it would have been different with him. Maybe not. Probably not, in fact. So it's a tricky situation. My guess is that they're not going to go for a rebuild. They're going to try to bring in maybe one or two, in addition to Ramsey, one or two players who I think they need to be younger. They need to spend money on them if they can, and hope for the best. But they really thought that Cristiano was the last piece of the puzzle, and obviously it's proven otherwise.
Gav, they take on, obviously they can win the title at the weekend if they beat Fiorentina. What sort of celebration, if any, will there be? How much has this dampened that?
Look, it's still a title. It's their 7th in a row. I think, though, there is a deeper mood because I think even the biggest Juve fans, they look at this and they know that this team probably, well, certainly in Serie A hasn't played, no matter what the numbers say, hasn't played as well as last season. And Allegri himself has said all along, you know, we need to play better, we need to dominate teams, blah, blah, blah. It just hasn't happened, even though they're setting records in Serie A. I think, you know, it's going to be a very long, very tough last few weeks of the season. And, you know, they're going to go into transfer market mode, a little bit like Real Madrid, where all the conversation is going to be about, all right, who can we add, who needs to go?
Can Ajax win the Champions League?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what the boys think, but I don't think we can. After you have destroyed Real Madrid and not destroyed, but you know, given a lesson to Juventus, I don't think we can look at them in any game, even against Man City, or maybe even Barca, and
All
say,
Spurs.
I suppose, or Liverpool, and say, oh, they're real underdogs here. Not playing like that.
I agree. I think we've seen and we've spoken about a lot from Ajax is how good they are going forward, and as Ali rightly points out, at times overpassing. But at the back, solid as well. Against a Juventus machine that at home, I thought they stood up really well against Juventus.
Ajax win the Champions League?
Not yet, but they can.
Yep.
And certainly when you think of the teams that are left, teams that are open at times, Manchester City, Barcelona, they like to play. Well, so does Ajax. That bodes well for them. It's not like they're going to meet a team that are going to defend and put a lot of numbers behind the ball. So, yeah, it's likely, but I'm not betting on it.
They'll, of course, face the winners of City and Spurs, but for the first time since 2010, there will be a Champions League semi-final without Cristiano Ronaldo. Lionel Messi, star of the show, as Barcelona cruise past Manchester United at the Camp Nou. A brace for Messi, plus a fantastic finish from Coutinho, giving Barca a 3-0 lead over the Premier League side. 4-0 on aggregate. This was done and dusted, really, wasn't it, in the first half? Messi with an amazing goal. De Gea then thrown in that second. And that was it.
Well, I would go as far to say it was done and dusted in the first leg.
Sure.
Even though it was only 1-0.
Yeah.
Only the most ardent fans of United would think. I mean, who'd think that just because you got lucky in Paris, and they did, OK, they got through, but they got lucky because they bottled it and made mistakes. And then you get dominated by Watford at home, OK, you win. But you're dominated by West Ham at home, OK, you win. But you expect them to go to the Camp Nou with this team and have Messi have a quiet game for the second week in a row. I mean, you got to be on cloud cuckoo land if you thought that was going to happen. I mean, really, they took the foot off the gas. It was men against boys. It's nothing on Solskjaer, to be fair. It's not on him. He's just in the door and he's trying to patch it up. But I think it shows you where they are. And for those that have said, oh, well, they started well. and? You know what I mean? What, 10 minutes? You know what I mean? As if Barcelona didn't have any other chances in the game. So I think it's good for Man United they're out, because their biggest fight is not this Champions League.
Yeah.
Because it's not good enough. It's the Premier League and trying to get in that top four, which, by the way, is a real struggle for them now.
Lionel Messi, once again, you look at his numbers this year. 42 games, 45 goals and 18 assists.
Yeah, so when Chris Smalling smashed them in the first leg, you thought, well, maybe there'll be a reaction. Well, there was. There was. He got on the ball, and it was danger. Anytime that he decided to go with a change of pace, I'm telling you, Phil Jones still spinning.
Yeah.
I mean, he turned him inside and outside and inside again. It's between his legs and cuts him back. And he's doing whatever he wants, whenever he wants to. And when he's playing like that, I don't care. I don't care if it's Manchester United. I don't care what team it is. He's playing like that. He's unstoppable. Nobody keeps up with him. And certainly, Manchester United was nowhere near the ball to try to challenge Lionel Messi or anybody else in Barcelona. This was, again, talk about a lesson.
Why is De Gea rubbish in Spain? What happens to him, Shaq?
I mean, all you can say, you can just put that down as one of those that happens to every single keeper, regardless of how good you are, and you just pick the worst possible night to do it. David De Gea has been easily, in my opinion, Manchester United's most consistent player and best player for the last 3 or 4 seasons. That was just uncharacteristic.
It's interesting when you look at that United 11. You think how many of those players are going to be at the heart of a side that's going to be competing with likes of Barcelona in the future? Because there's so much...
mediocrity. There's a whole lot of mediocrity in this Manchester United team, which we've been saying. This is not a great Manchester United team by any measure. The result against PSG papered over a whole lot of cracks. You were dominated in both legs against PSG as well.
Yeah.
But PSG have a habit over the last couple of seasons of shooting themselves in the foot, and they do it. Why you come to the Camp Nou and expect the same is simply beyond me. Yes, you started well. You started well in Paris as well. But Barcelona didn't make the mistakes that the PSG made, and they don't have the history that PSG have in crumbling under their own self-weight. And then, as Ali points out, once Lionel Messi gets in this kind of mood, there is simply nothing that anybody in world football could do, and certainly nobody in that Manchester
You're right,
United
there's a
team.
lot of mediocrity, a lot. And then they appointed a manager on a whim. And by the way, again, Pogba might as well have went and sat next to his manager. You know, not blaming Paul Pogba for the defeat, but again, saw nothing from him. And they're going to have to spend millions, more than anybody else.
But the problem is they're
in the
competing
summer.
with Real Madrid, as we spoke about before, and Juventus. And is Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer enough of a pull if you're a big-name player when you've got the likes of Madrid or Juventus courting you as well? That's a massive issue for them.
And if you have an agent who's worth his salt, his or her salt, you're looking at Alexis Sanchez and thinking, well, we need to be up in that ballpark. And how many players can you afford? Listen, I know Manchester United are a very wealthy club, but how many players can you afford to be paying £400,000 and £500,000 a week?
Let's talk about the reality of Manchester United as compared to Barcelona. And it's an image that we saw multiple times. Ashley Young, he's playing left back. And every time there's a goal score, he's trying to give it, like, come on, guys, let's go. Let's knock the ball around. You have no chance. And we probably would have done the same thing. Come on, guys, let's go. Let's knock the ball around. No chance. You still have Ashley Young playing left back for you. That kind of gives you an idea as to the sort of team that Manchester United is as compared to Barcelona. There is just no comparison.
So, Barcelona through to the semi-finals and Manchester United out. Barcelona await the winners of Liverpool-Porto. Obviously, it's likely to be Jurgen Klopp's side after that 2-0 win in the first leg. What a semi-final that could be. Barca against Liverpool, as you mentioned. The other side of the bracket, Ajax await the winners of City or Spurs. Very much the wrong end of the season. Remember, they lost at home 5-0 at the weekend, 2-0 today, meaning that 2 points now separate Cardiff and Brighton in 17th and 18th. Brighton, though, do have a game in hand over their Welsh rivals. There's one gentleman in particular that dominates the back pages, although on this particular one it's David De Gea, oh no, and this one as well. Why are we not seeing?
Why are we picking on goalies?
There he is.
Yeah, stop picking on the goalies.
United blown away, the back page of the time. Total Messi. Blundering United are left in a total Messi. I didn't read that in the proper order. Any others? So that's it.
I think David De Gea should let it settle a bit before he goes back in for his next round of talks.
Of course. Yeah, because he wants his
They were
500
going to get
grand.
battered anyway. Listen, it was a goalkeeping error, but it was only one team that was ever going to win that. Stop picking on the goalie.
And who's the reason they won it, really, Shane? Messi?
Lionel Messi. Yeah.
Where do you stand on whether or not he's the...
I think he's a wonderful player, Lionel
Right,
Messi.
but he has to win the World Cup.
I would just like to see that kind of performance on a World Cup stage.
Right.
So in the all-time scale of players.
I would like to see that kind of performance.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on.
You're welcome.
A
Moving
lot
on.
of questions about that subject on Extra Time, Shaq.
I'm not coming in.
No.
Any questions about your red nose?
That's it. Oh, my God. Big zip.
Are you going to pop that or what?
We'll sort it out. Welcome into Extra Time. We'll talk about Shaka's weekend a little later on.
Why?
If we may, because
Why?
we've had some questions about it.
But my weekend.
You were spotted at Augusta.
Oh!
There's no Craig Burley. He's gone to go do the daily, what's it called again?
Daily Wager.
Daily Wager.
Daily Wager.
Yes.
He's gone to do that. Fear not, we're here. My zit is here. I'm here.
Yes, very much.
Is your zit filling in for Craig? Is that what
Well, it's
just
filling.
It's just
filling with
radiating
something.
heat off this nose. It's quite something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
There
man.
it is.
No, don't
Come
zoom
close,
in.
come close.
No, don't do
Can't really
that.
get in there.
Don't do that.
Get in there.
Don't
Go on,
do
Brian.
that.
Have a look
No.
at it. 30 children.
You made
Really
a pop
want to
it.
see that.
Oh, okay, that thing is
Right. Interesting how Ajax and United have progressed since the Europa League final 2 years ago, especially when considering the money spent, players sold by each club. I have to be reminded that United won the Europa League 2 years ago with a 2-0 win against Ajax. Gab, is this interesting for you?
It is and it isn't. I mean, look, the reality is...
Mark
you know,
Ogden's
certain
tweet, who
players
is
like
Gab's
Matthijs,
big
the-
rival.
controversy.
Yes, he's the senior writer. Certain players like Matthijs de Ligt and and Donny van de Beek, I think, are generational players. It's not like you can plan on bringing those people through. You can't plan on Mazraoui. Certainly not something that happened 2 years ago. You know, this was a team that was progressing, but look, they also got themselves an absolute stud, I think, of a manager in Ten Hag, whereas, you know, 3 years ago when they reached the Europa League final, it was freaking Peter Bosz, not quite the same thing. So clubs make mistakes, clubs succeed, clubs get things right. It's obvious that even in the low times, Ajax were never as bad or never as far away. You know, it's interesting that guy who came on, I think, is a great example of this. If you remember him, Daly Sinkgraven, you know, he was Ajax's record signing. They paid $7 million for him, which is an enormous amount for Ajax 3-4 years ago. He was very young. His dad was a pro. People thought great things about him. And then the guy got injured and hasn't been the same. So, you know, I think we need to sometimes really look at a broader picture when we look at football clubs. But that's the long answer. The short answer is long, yeah. Yes, Ajax have been better run than Manchester United.
Gab, I've been
right.
told to ask you why you hate De Ligt.
Ooh.
You think he's very overrated, apparently.
Wow.
Gab?
No, I don't hate De Ligt. I think he was thrown in at the deep end way too young, and you know, certainly with the national side, he's obviously lived up to it with Ajax. I think there's still a lot more to come from him, and I don't know that athletically he's quite there yet. He's certainly very, very strong, but you know, there are some players who I think can build tremendous careers without necessarily being athletic freaks at a young age. Those the defenders who normally get playing time very young tend to be, above all, tremendous athletes, which he's not. He's a very good athlete, but what he does have is obviously a tremendous football brain, and in terms of technical ability, he's right up there among the very best in the world.
Okay.
At his position.
He looked very athletic today in the header.
Yes, the header was quite good. We've got a lot of questions. I think we had a record number of questions today for extra time, so let's not dwell on them with such long answers.
Okay.
Paul Pogba has been so ineffective in the last few games for United. Should United sell him now or risk having an unsatisfied player in the dressing room next season? Everyone blamed Mourinho in the past, but the problem still remains after Mourinho. Did nothing today. Anonymous again.
I think if you get a buyer for anybody in that United dressing room and you get decent money, take it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a long and expensive rebuilding process for United. You take what you can when, and as we were saying on the show, there's an awful lot of mediocrity.
How hard would you push if you were Madrid, for example, to get him?
Not very. No. Not very. And that's why if I'm Manchester United, I think about the fact that I don't want top-class talent walking out the door, because I actually need top-class talent to come through the doors. So I don't need to have one of my more talented guys walk out. And I just don't think, because of what he has done and not done, that Real Madrid would be like, yeah, that's our guy. I don't see it happening.
Let's stick with Madrid. Get a little philosophical.
Oh.
Does Ronaldo need Madrid more, or does Madrid need Ronaldo more?
Madrid needs Ronaldo more.
No.
Ronaldo needs Madrid more. Ronaldo doesn't need anybody. He's all right.
He does.
What does he need?
Everyone. People to get him the ball.
Well, he wasn't going to get the ball with this Madrid team.
Well, it's exactly the same as last year's Madrid team.
Was it?
Yes.
No, it wasn't. They're worse.
What's the change?
They're far worse.
Where are the personnel changes?
They are far worse.
But it's the same players.
Yeah, but they're older.
See, successful relationships are built on compromise.
This is...
they need each other.
This is 10 years of marriage counselling talking.
17 years of marriage. Thriving, by the way. Thriving.
Wow.
I love you, babe. Love you.
Yeah, I just had to put that.
Do you think that United could have had a chance if Drake took a selfie with Messi? It's the Drake curse, of course.
He needed a picture with the whole team.
I took a picture of Drake a few years ago.
I played FIFA against Drake.
Yeah.
Oh. I beat him easily.
And we've never been the same since.
No
problem.
It's gone downhill since.
Shaka, is Ajax your #1 team now in your power rankings?
No. Barcelona will still be #1. We have to see what happens tomorrow.
You don't know the rest of your power rankings, do you?
Huh?
You don't know the rest of your power
I'll
rankings.
have to wait for all the games to play.
Let's be honest, you don't
There's
know who
games
else
to
you
come
have in your
tomorrow
top 10.
and Thursday.
Yeah. We did actually have a half-time segment where we had about 30 seconds to fill, so Xhaka was struggling. And in struggling, he said Ajax will be a force to be reckoned with. This was at the start of the Champions League.
I wasn't struggling.
Definitely, that was a filler line.
No, it wasn't.
Definitely a filler line.
I foresaw what was coming.
If this Ajax side, Gab, win the Champions League, will it be bigger achievement than Leicester win the league? Well, no. But, Gab, you can answer it.
No, it won't be. It won't be because Ajax are a legitimate team with legitimate stars, and most of all, this is a knockout competition, so it's entirely different. It would be a tremendous achievement, but no, not on a par with Leicester.
This is what I've learned. He hates De Ligt, and he hates Leicester.
Well,
I mean, that's what
that's
what I got out of that.
5,000 to 1, apparently.
Yeah. Who said that?
And now to the very main point.
Yes.
The whole extra time. We end with this tweet.
Uh-huh.
What?
Pretty sure I saw Xhaka at the Masters today.
Yeah!
What a Newcastle legend. Alongside that tweet, there was a picture of you back in your playing days.
What was that?
There it is.
Hey! Look at that touch.
Is that what you wore to the Masters?
Look at that touch.
Yeah, first off, did you wear that to the Masters? Wouldn't that be brilliant if he went in full Newcastle
Full Newcastle kit.
goalkeeper gloves, the whole shebang. That would be brilliant. So, Shaq,
Yeah.
how was it?
Excellent.
Yeah?
We were really good. I was there for Sunday. I was there Saturday and Sunday.
Wow. So
So-
what were your tactics? Did you follow Tiger or did you...
I positioned myself where the drives would land.
Right.
That would be the fairway.
Are you
Most
allowed
of the
on
time. Most of the time.
He's trying to catch the ball with his gloves on.
Most of the time. But so at least that way you could see the second shots into the green and you could get a
Right.
view of the green. And then you'd have to kind of stay ahead of the Tiger crowd.
What was it like when obviously Woods went ahead? When it
Oh,
kind of
it was crazy because everybody's standing looking at the only because you're not allowed to have your phone on the course or anything of the sort. Everybody just standing, staring at the leaderboards, and then every time a number comes down, you see the guy go up, climb up the ladder.
Yeah.
Everybody just standing there, kind of staring up, waiting to see what happens. It was a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
So where do you put your phone? You have to...
You have to check it at the gate. There's a big thing at the gate where
Right.
you have to turn your phone in, they give you a ticket,
Yep.
and then they do give it, and they search you, and nothing. You're not allowed to take anything.
So you actually get to talk to people then.
You have to talk to
Well, imagine that. Well, what a world we
You
live
have
in.
no,
Where we
that-
can
that's
actually
the
talk to each
only
other.
way. You have to talk to each other. And then at the 18th, when he thinks he putt, I am a couple hundred yards away.
Right.
You can't get anywhere near the green.
Sure.
But everybody just starts running around and hugging each other, and you're high-fiving, and people just. It was fun. It was
very
a lot of fun.
nice.
It was good. It was a good Masters to be at.
Yeah, not bad one.
Yeah, I guess
Shaq.
so.
Yeah, I picked a good one.
So you were not rooting for Molinari then?
No. No. I was.
Stevie was.
Yeah, Steve.
I was.
Stevie was very angry at Tiger won.
Only Stevie would be.
I know,
Only,
he was-
only Stevie would be. And you couldn't help but
To feel it, feel
Yeah.
the moment.
Yeah.
Well, lovely, Shaq. Were you going back next year?
I don't think I'd be invited there.
And can we come along?
Well, if I get an invite, I'll see what I can do.
That is the emptiest promise I've ever heard in my life. Thank you very much, Shaq.
So we'll be watching the Masters here.
see what I can do.
See what I can do.
I'll put it in my Rolodex.
Thanks to Gab. We're back to... Are you here tomorrow, Shaq?
Yeah. No Masters tomorrow.
No, that's it. Already the feelers are gone.
Hey, you know quietly who was angry about Shaka being at the Masters? Craig Burley.
Wow.
Craig Burley.
We're back tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You can see Craig on the Daily Wager as well, by the way.
Oh, go on.
Okay.